Let me explain closed communion. We just explained that. The only people who normally, there is pastoral discretion, exceptions, who should commune in a certain place are just what I said: faith in Jesus, baptize, believe in the real presence, and believe the same thing. That's called closed communion. So, for example, technically speaking, a Roman Catholic, a Baptist, whatever, shouldn't commune here unless there's extenuating circumstances, and sometimes there are. So let me give you some points here. You can write this down on the left-hand margin. I'm going to give you about 5 points here explaining closed communion. Number 1, write down the word history. This idea of closed communion, that is, of restricting who should come up to the Lord's table, is not an invention of the Lutheran Church. It's not an invention of the Roman Catholic Church, but it goes all the way back to the early church fathers. Again, we can go back, read their literature, and they say, in essence, the same thing I've taught you. Okay? You should only commune in the church that you are in agreement with. For example, if I were to commune in the Roman Catholic Church, now listen to what I'm saying, by my very actions, I would be agreeing the Pope is the head of the church. But if I commune with the Roman Catholic Church, by my very actions, I would be saying I believe in purgatory. By my very actions, I'd say we should pray to Mary. Okay? Because, as you know, actions often speak louder than words, right? Okay? And same thing, if I went to a Baptist church and I took the Lord's Supper, I would be saying, you know, you're right, infants should not be baptized. And you know, you're right, the bread and wine's just bread and wine that symbolize or represent the body and blood of Christ. That's what I'd be saying by the action of taking the Lord's Supper there. Okay? That goes all the way back to the early church. So history. Now again, that doesn't make it biblical, but again, I'm trying to put it in what? Context for you. Number 2. Today, most Christians, that is the denominations, have the practice of closed communion. The entire Roman Catholic official teaching is closed communion. Now, again, just like in any parish, it often varies from what? Priest to priest. You know, some priests are very liberal. Some priests are very traditional. But the official teaching of the Roman Catholic Church is to commune in the Roman Catholic Church, you need to be Roman Catholic. Okay? It's the same with the Orthodox Church in the East. It's the same with our church, and there are other churches that practice this too. So again, this may not prove that this is biblical, but again puts it in the context that this is not a strange teaching. Most Christians are in churches that practice what I call closed or close communion. Okay? So it has a long history, and most Christians today practice this. By the way, most of the Christians that don't practice this are in 2 camps, in America anyway, in America. Number 1, they're liberal churches. Anybody can come. Sometimes even you don't have to have faith in Jesus. Anybody can come. And number 2 would be what I would call evangelical churches. Now, they'd probably say you have to have faith in Jesus. But they wouldn't have very many. That'd be about it. Okay, that's called open communion. Okay, number 3, we practice this to protect people from harm. And that's where you can write down 1 Corinthians 11, 27 to 29. Now, I want you to see this then as an act of love. If I don't know who's coming up to the table, okay, and I'm giving them the body and blood of Jesus, obviously Jesus wants them to receive the body and blood as a blessing, and as Jesus' representative who's distributing the supper, I want people to receive it as a blessing. So I don't want to unwittingly have somebody come up and they receive the body and blood of Jesus for their harm. See? So that's another reason that we practice close communion, is to prevent anyone taking the Lord's Supper in the wrong way. Okay. Number 4. Another reason we practice close communion is to testify to the truth of the real presence. In other words, because we know there are denominations, pastors, Christians, who openly criticize the real presence and teach that the bread and wine only represent or symbolize the body and blood of Jesus. We practice close communion to testify to the truth of the real presence. That if you don't believe in the real presence of the body and blood of Jesus, you are not welcome at this altar. Because it's Jesus who says, this is my body, this is my blood. So it's to testify to the truth of the real presence. Number 5, the last one. It's very closely related to 4. To testify to the truth of one doctrine that demands unity. In other words, point 5 is related to 4. Point 4 is just very narrow. It's talking about one doctrine, isn't it? The real presence. Point 5 is saying wherever you commune, you should be in agreement with wherever you commune.